My name's Lucas. I'm 27, and I honestly thought that night was going to be smooth. I had no reason to expect drama. It was just a small family dinner at my mom's place, nothing fancy. My younger sister had just come back from a semester abroad, so it was kind of a welcome back thing. My parents, my sister, me, and my girlfriend at the time, Nina. We'd been together for a little over a year. Everyone liked her, especially my mom, who always said she was refreshingly honest, which, looking back now, feels kind of ironic. I remember Nina was quieter than usual on the way over, but I figured she was just tired or maybe stressed from work. The evening started off normal. Drinks, small talk, some dumb stories about when my sister got lost in Italy. Nina laughed in the right places, helped set the table, even brought wine. No red flags at all. We sat down to eat, and my mom made her usual overcooked chicken, and we were halfway through dinner when it happened. My dad was asking me about a job interview I had coming up, and Nina suddenly interrupted and said, "Shouldn't we tell them? Before it gets worse." The entire table went quiet. She looked straight at me, and I felt this pit drop in my stomach. I had no idea what she was talking about. None. But the way she said it, calm, steady, like she had rehearsed it, I knew I was about to get blindsided. My fork hovered over my plate, but I didn't move. I looked at her, waiting for her to laugh, to say she was joking, but nothing came. Everyone else was staring at me like I already knew what she was going to say. It was like she had dropped a grenade on the table, and we were all just waiting for it to explode. I kind of laughed at first, out of confusion more than anything. My mom was already leaning in, fork frozen midair. "Tell us what?" she asked. Nina didn't look at anyone but me. "About the messages. The ones from that girl you swore you weren't seeing anymore." My first instinct was to deny it, because that's what anyone would do when ambushed like that. But the thing is, I wasn't cheating. I had no idea what she meant. I asked her, "What messages?" and she just pulled out her phone and placed it on the table. My sister looked between us like we were on some kind of reality show. My dad leaned back and just stared, expressionless. Nina tapped a few things and then spun the phone toward my mom. I didn't even get a chance to stop her or explain. I hadn't even seen what she was about to show, and I didn't know what kind of conversation she had twisted into whatever she was trying to prove. I just sat there frozen, heart racing, trying to remember any message that could possibly be misread. But nothing came to mind. Not a single thing. She had screenshots. Conversations. Some were flirty, I'll admit, but they were old. From way before we made things official. One of them was even from before our first date. But Nina had gone through my laptop, synced my messages, and compiled everything that could possibly be interpreted as shady. And she did it like a presentation, with dates and timestamps. I tried to explain that the messages were from before we were serious, that I hadn't even seen that girl in months, but it didn't matter. My mom was already giving me that disappointed look, and my sister just said, "Wow," under her breath. Nina didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just calmly told everyone she was done being made to feel stupid and wanted to do this in front of people who mattered to me. She said she wanted them to know who I really was before they kept praising me like I was some golden boy. I could see my cousin watching with this mix of pity and curiosity, like she was witnessing something she couldn't look away from. I felt my skin burn, not just from the shame, but from the helplessness. I couldn't prove anything in that moment. I couldn't undo what she had just made them believe. At that point, I wasn't even mad about the accusations. I was just embarrassed, completely humiliated. My dad stood up and went to the kitchen, probably to avoid getting involved. My mom asked Nina if she was okay and then started comforting her like she was the victim. I mean, she was, kind of, but the whole thing felt like a setup. Who does that? Who waits until dinner with someone's family to drop something like that? I kept trying to speak, to clarify, but Nina wasn't having it. She said, "You lied to me. Maybe not with words, but with what you hid." That line stuck in my head. It sounded rehearsed, like she had planned the whole speech. It was like she wasn't even reacting emotionally anymore, just delivering a message. My sister eventually told me to stop talking, that I was only making it worse. And the more I tried to defend myself, the more everyone's silence felt like a verdict. I remember looking around and realizing no one was on my side. Not one person. Eventually, she got up, said she was calling a ride, and just left. No drama, No yelling, no tears. Just walked out like she had done her job. The rest of us just sat there in silence. My sister was the first to say anything. She looked at me and asked, "Is it true?" I said no, that it wasn't what Nina made it out to be, that she took things way out of context. But my mom was already cleaning up the plates like the dinner was officially over. My dad didn't come back to the table. I felt like I wasn't even part of the family in that moment. Like everyone silently agreed that I had brought shame into the house or something. I wanted to disappear. I stayed sitting there for a while after she left, not even touching my food. It had gone cold anyway. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to figure out if maybe I had done something wrong and just didn't realize it. But I knew the truth. I wasn't talking to that girl anymore. I wasn't hiding anything. Yeah, the messages looked bad on paper, but they were from before Nina and I ever had a real conversation about being exclusive. The problem was that no one at that table seemed to care about the timeline. All they saw was my girlfriend, now ex, I guess, showing them a screen full of flirtatious messages and walking out looking like the mature one. My mom kept glancing over at me like she expected an apology. My sister started texting someone under the table, probably telling her friends what had just happened. I wanted to say something, anything, to shift the weight off me, but nothing came out. My throat felt tight, and not because I was sad, because I was angry. Not just at Nina, but at the fact that everyone took her side so quickly. No one even asked me what really happened. I was just the guy who got caught. Eventually, my dad came back into the room and sat down without saying a word. He didn't look at me, just picked up a piece of chicken and started eating like nothing had happened. That somehow pissed me off even more than anything else. I asked him, "So you're not going to say anything?" And he just shrugged. "What do you want me to say?" That line hit me like a punch. My mom told me not to start and asked if I could just let it go for the night. Let what go? That my girlfriend just blew up our relationship and made me look like a lying piece of trash in front of my own family? I said I was going for a walk and got up, but as I was leaving, I heard my sister whisper, "Don't forget your phone, just in case you need to delete anything." I turned around and looked at her, expecting her to back down or say she was kidding, but she didn't. She just stared at me like I deserved it. I left the house feeling like I didn't even belong to them anymore. I walked for almost an hour without really thinking about where I was going. Just moving, trying to let the cold air calm me down. My hands were shaking a little, partly from the cold, partly from everything that had just unfolded. I checked my phone a few times, hoping Nina would text or call, maybe to say she overreacted or at least give me a chance to explain. But nothing. I looked at our last messages, the last photo she sent, and it felt like I was staring at something from a completely different life. It wasn't just the end of a relationship. It felt like she had taken something bigger from me, my credibility with my own family. That was the part one couldn't shake. They had all seen me grow up. They knew me. But the moment she showed them those messages, all of that vanished. That kind of trust, once it's gone, you don't get it back easily. And I hadn't even done anything unforgivable. I was just misunderstood, or maybe framed. I don't know. Either way, I couldn't stop replaying the look on my mom's face. She didn't say she was disappointed, but she didn't have to. I felt it. When I got back home later that night, the dishes were washed, lights off, everyone already in their rooms. My plate was covered with foil in the fridge, like some weird gesture of passive-aggressive politeness. I didn't eat. I just went to my room, locked the door, and sat on the edge of my bed staring at the floor. I thought about texting Nina but didn't know what I'd even say. Apologize for something I didn't really do? Ask her why she picked that moment, that place, to humiliate me? It wasn't like I cheated on her or lied. I just didn't delete conversations fast enough. And honestly, part of me wondered if this was less about the messages and more about wanting a dramatic exit. Something to make her look strong and hurt and dignified in front of my family. And she got exactly that. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that moment when she pulled out her phone, that pause before she said, "Can I show you something?" It played over and over like some messed up loop I couldn't stop. The days that followed were weird. My mom didn't bring it up, but she acted different. Like she was walking on eggshells around me, only saying the basics, like "good morning" or "are you working today?" My dad barely spoke at all. When we crossed paths, he just nodded or grunted. I knew my sister was dying to ask questions, but even she backed off. It was like the whole house had been rewired overnight. I kept thinking maybe Nina would reach out. Maybe she'd regret how she did things. But nothing. She unfollowed me on everything and blocked my number. Just like that, erased me. I kept going over the messages she showed them, trying to see them through her eyes. Yeah, they were flirty, but they were old, and nothing had ever come of them. I wasn't planning anything. I wasn't being shady. But explaining that now just sounded like damage control, like I was scrambling after getting caught. The timing of it all, at the dinner table, in front of everyone, made it look way worse than it was. Eventually, I tried talking to my mom about it. I asked her what she thought, what she believed. She said she didn't want to get involved in young people's drama, which was rich coming from someone who once grounded me for 2 weeks over a C in biology. It wasn't just her words, though. It was the tone. Cold, dismissive. Like I had disappointed her in some moral way, like I was now lumped into the same category as people she'd warned me about when I was younger. My dad didn't say much, but when I asked if he thought I did something wrong, he said, "It's not about what I think. It's about what it looked like." That hit harder than I expected. Because yeah, I knew what it looked like. And apparently that was enough. I started avoiding meals with them. Ate in my room. Took long drives just to be out of the house. It felt like I wasn't part of the family anymore, like I was just renting space in their judgment. A couple weeks after that dinner, I went to a cousin's birthday party thinking maybe things would feel normal again. Big mistake. The second I walked in, I could feel the shift. People looked at me longer than they should, but avoided eye contact when I looked back. A few of them were friendly, but it was that fake kind of friendly, like they didn't want to be caught ignoring me. Eventually, my uncle pulled me aside and said something like, "You know, people talk. And they'll keep talking until you clear it up." I asked him what he meant, and he just said, "You know what I mean," then walked off. I didn't even stay long after that. I left early, told them I had work in the morning, and just sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes. The worst part wasn't what Nina had said. It was how fast everyone turned into spectators, like my personal life had become family entertainment. At one point, I considered sending out some kind of message, like a mass explanation, just to clear my name. But then I thought, who even deserves that? The people who didn't ask? The ones who filled in the blanks with whatever made the story juicier? I figured if someone wanted the truth, they'd ask me. But no one did. It was like they preferred the version where I was the guy who got caught. The guy who ruined dinner. The guy who had a secret. And maybe that was easier for them to digest. It made me realize something harsh. When someone paints you as the villain, most people won't wait for your side of the story. They'll just start building the gallows. That dinner wasn't just the end of my relationship. It shifted how my family saw me. And as much as I hate to say it, I don't think it'll ever fully go back to how it was. I started spending more time at work, volunteering for extra shifts, staying late even when there wasn't much to do. It wasn't because I was being productive. I just didn't want to be home. I didn't want to sit in that silence or feel that invisible pressure from people who used to know me but now looked at me like a stranger. I even thought about moving out for a while, but it didn't feel right to make a big life decision just to escape an awkward situation. I kept telling myself things would blow over, that people would get bored of the drama eventually. But weeks passed, then months, and every time I saw a family member at a gathering or bumped into someone who was at that dinner, I could still feel it. That unspoken question hanging between us. That assumption. And the worst part? Nina never corrected it. Never told them the full context. I guess she didn't have to. She got what she wanted. Looking back, I think what hurt most wasn't the breakup or the embarrassment. It was the betrayal of it all. We had been through a lot together, and even though things weren't perfect, I never thought she'd weaponize our past to humiliate me. She knew exactly when and where to drop that bomb, and she did it with a smile. I used to think that if someone knew you deeply, they'd also know how to protect you. But what I learned that night is the opposite is also true. When someone knows you deeply, they know exactly where to hit you so it'll hurt the most. And Nina hit me where it would echo for a long time. Not just in the room, but in every conversation after, in every side glance, in every awkward silence. I still don't know if she planned it or if it just came out in the moment. But either way, she never looked back. And now, when people talk about that dinner, I'm not Daniel who dated Nina. I'm Daniel, the guy from that night. The last real conversation I had with Nina happened maybe 2 months after everything went down. I ran into her at a coffee shop near my office. She looked surprised to see me, but not uncomfortable. I wish I could say the same. I remember standing there, coffee in hand, heart pounding, trying to decide if I should just walk out. But she waved at me like we were old friends, and I figured I might as well get some closure. We talked for 5 or 6 minutes, nothing too deep. Just surface-level crap about work and how crazy everything got. At one point, I asked her why she said what she said in front of everyone. She paused for a second, then shrugged and said, "I guess I was angry, and maybe I wanted people to know who you really were." That hit harder than I expected. Not because she said it, but because she meant it. There was no apology, no regret. Just this cold certainty that she'd done what she felt was right, and that was that. I stood there staring at her and realized she had already moved on, while I was still living inside the fallout. After that, I stopped trying to make sense of it. I stopped replaying the night in my head, trying to figure out if there was a way I could have seen it coming or stopped it. Sometimes, bad things just happen. Not because you deserve them, and not because someone's evil, but because people get hurt, and they want that hurt to echo somewhere else. I think that's what Nina did. She echoed it, and it landed right in the middle of my family dinner. I wish I had some neat ending for this story. Like I confronted everyone, or they all apologized, or I learned some life-changing lesson. But none of that happened. What happened was I went home after that coffee shop meeting, sat on my couch, and realized that sometimes the people you let closest to you are the ones most willing to burn it all down just to prove a point. And once they do, there's no putting it back together the same way again. You can forgive, maybe, but things don't feel solid anymore. They feel like cracked glass you keep drinking from, hoping it holds. It's been over a year now, and the weirdest thing is how that night still defines so much, even though no one talks about it anymore. It's like this silent fracture that never healed properly. Family dinners kept happening, but I stopped going for a long time. When I finally did show up again, things were fine. Just fine. Not warm. Not real. Just a bunch of people pretending nothing ever happened, like the air hadn't once been sliced open by a single sentence. Every now and then, my uncle will make a joke, or my cousin will bring up Nina casually, just to see if I flinch. I don't, not anymore. But inside, I still carry that night like a weight in my gut. Not because I was exposed, but because no one really cared to ask my side. They took what she said as truth, or at least enough of it to let the silence do the rest. And the silence has been loud ever since. It filled every birthday, every holiday, every text that used to come with a joke, and now just says, "You coming?" What I can't shake off, even now, is the timing of it all. The way she smiled just before speaking. The way her tone was so casual, like she was commenting on the weather. It felt rehearsed. And maybe that's the part that unsettles me the most. That someone could be so calm while blowing up someone else's life. I'll never know if she planned it days before or decided in the moment. But either way, it worked. She left a mark that hasn't faded. And the worst part is, nothing really happened after that. No apology, no reckoning, no resolution. Just that sentence, dropped like a stone in water, and the ripples that never stopped. I've moved on, mostly. I've dated other people. I've gotten back into family gatherings slowly. But every time I walk into a room now, I wonder who sees me as I am and who still sees me as the guy from that night. I guess I'll never really know. And maybe I don't want to.